like this is something that you can actually make money. Like this is something that will actually grow your business, that will actually make you money. A lot of the AI, chat bots or whatever, they're going to replace kind of some of your entry level positions. Like we're essentially mimicking a sales rep. We're being a sales rep, and sales is not an entry level position typically. I mean, you got different levels obviously, but what's crazy is we're actually overperforming, we're outperforming the average sales rep.
It's that time of the year, the #1 door-to-door conference in the world, Door to Door Con 8, January 7th through the 9th. Now, we have done this now 8 years, and we have over 60 amazing workshop and panel speakers where we dive into leadership, recruiting, investments, sales skills, different industries from pest workshops to solar workshops to retail. And we have found people leaving transformative. This year is going to be extra special. We're adding an owner's day for free on the 7th. So come to Salt Lake City, Utah, get your ticket, come celebrate this amazing industry that we live in, and come as a team, learn as a team, and leave as a tribe. Don't hesitate, don't wait, don't be like, oh, I'll get it later. Click the link below.
What up, DDD World? JP here, another podcast. Got a vendor from DDD Con, Sellify, Thomas Lundberg in house. Thomas, how are you?
Doing amazing.
Great, man. We got a chance to chit chat before we jumped in studio here. And so we're going to tell the world a little bit about first of all, your personal history in door-to-door sales. And we'll talk about Sellify and what you all do as a company in a minute. But let's tell listeners, how connected are you to the door-to-door space?
Yeah, totally. So my first year was in 2019. I sold for Fox. It's a long story, but yeah, I sold for Fox in 2019, grew a team there.
Which is a pest control company for those of you who are
right.
from the pest world, yeah?
Yes. And got into ownership there. We grew it for a few years. We sold that to Rollins recently. And then since then started Sellify and run a door-to-door team. But yeah.
How many years were you on the doors yourself?
So 2019, 2020.
Carry the one.
5 years.
5 years, built teams, and then like any smart pest control guy, sold off the accounts and are still in pest control, obviously, running sales teams, as well as starting the software. So as far as running the business now and learning how to knock doors and sell, how did that door-to-door experience help you with either confidence, skill set, cash flow? How did it help you start Sellify?
So let me just tell a little bit about my story too. So my first summer I sold 742, which was a shocker to me. I didn't ever think I was going to continue in door-to-door.
Pretty much golden door standards.
Yeah, I got a golden door the second year. I didn't ever pick it up. So I didn't even know about door-to-door expert. Now I do. Right, so I would have picked it up then. But anyways, what was I going to say?
I was asking you about your experience selling and how it translated into the business.
So yeah, as I got involved with selling, I got to do a lot of get involved with in ownership. I was able to focus on doing a lot of upselling. So upselling mosquito, upselling termite. Our office, we had 33% of our revenue came from termite, and it was super profitable compared to other, even just pest control is more profitable than pest control. And so anyways, I got a lot of experience just upselling, cross-selling, and that's what kind of inspired the idea of Sellify. The goal was actually not to create Sellify initially. It was just to say, hey, we're going to take our sales team and we're just going to do this all manually and just sell for companies and be kind of like another sales arm. Just be like, hey, we'll do your upselling. We'll do your outbound sales essentially. Either go in person and upsell people or do it over, texting or calling. And then I just had, one thing led to the next, and we're like, oh, we could text people. It's like, oh, wait a second, we can automate this with AI. Wait a second, there's some cool things coming out. Maybe we could leverage that. And anyways, it kind of snowballed from there.
Right. Fantastic. So let's get into Sellify and how you use AI and what it does, specifically in the pest control space. Any other industries that you've dabbled in with Sellify?
Yeah, so it's funny because like a lot of the door-to-door industries will use us because, or just door-to-door companies in general, just because they have a more of an appetite for paying commission on sales, right? And that's our model is we take a commission on sales. But in terms of like I know the pest space, so we have most of our clients are pest control related. We do home service as well. So like HVAC, plumbing, we've done a bunch for, solar, setting solar leads. So
have you watched that Bill Gates documentary on Netflix about AI?
I haven't.
You haven't?
I'll check it out.
Okay. So and I think it's more than just AI. I think the first episode was AI, and I am not of the generation. I went to high school and college without the internet. My 10-year-old thinks it's hysterical. I got my first cell phone at 27, right? As he texts me, hey, come pick him up in practice, right?
Yeah.
So think about that. My first cell phone, I was 27 years old, and I was obviously an entrepreneur. So I was on, I had a pager, man. I was on the early front of I wasn't the brick cell phone guy, but I was definitely on the early adopter on that. So it's not my generation, but I have to know enough to be dangerous, I guess. And so I saw that documentary, and I was terrified. I was like, this is, and in that documentary they brought in James Cameron, who wrote Terminator, right? And which is basically how AI takes over the world, right?
Yeah.
And so I was watching Bill Gates and James Cameron have a conversation above most people's understanding of truly the power of AI. And one of the things he said is, what's going to happen very soon is the AI is going to create the next AI, which will create the next AI. Like it will continue to get smarter and smarter and smarter. And I was educated and terrified all at the same time.
That's interesting. Have you dabbled with like using AI? Have you used like ChatGPT? Have you dabbled with that?
So I think there's some value, and I'll just talk about it on for the value of the podcast. Somebody asked me the greatest innovation in recruiting since I've been doing this for so long. And I used to have a massive account with the LA Times because I used to advertise in the newspaper, right? And so obviously the internet was the first one where you can, job boards and things like that. But AI, to me, when it comes to ad writing, right? And, the amount of time you want to sit and create, when you and I used to have to write ads every single week, like blurb ads for newspapers, and you had to find new and exciting ways to say the same thing to make yourself different. And now you go look for a pest control or solar job, and all the ads seems to be ripping off everybody else's ad. Well, I just teach to use ChatGPT to just say, write an Indeed formatted ad for this role. And I did live training on this. We did a live webinar and sent it out, but my grammar sucks. There's no punctuation. There's no no paragraph. There's nothing. I just babble. Our vision statement is this. This is what we believe in. These are the awards that we won. And it puts out like this amazing ad. And then and then a little tip is I'm like, okay, now write it at 8th grade reading level because that's right. Yeah. So, so I know enough to do that. And I've created some simple, email campaigns and stuff like that. But every time somebody shows me what they use it for, I get a little nervous. I want to learn how to use it to create decks, upload our color and our that would be fun for me as well. But that's about my extent.
Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah. So a lot of people are kind of skeptical. They don't really know. And what's funny is like a lot of the pest control operators they're not like they're not super familiar with AI. Let's just put it that way.
Right.
So it's like I'm trying to explain how it works, and they're like, well, what if this happens? Oh, don't worry about it. AI will take care of it. Or like, don't worry about it. We'll respond to that objection, no problem. And they're like, what? And so then when they see it, it's just like you can see the cogs turning. They're like, holy crap, this is truly amazing.
So funny story. So a gentleman used to work for me when he was a student at Azusa Pacific University. Was your typical street racer, gonna get in trouble, but he was 6 foot something and he was a football player. He went to Azusa Pacific to play football, Ended up having to live with me at some point when he was working for me just to, keep everything, and then he goes in and writes a book. Right. And I remember texting him, I'm like, when's the last time you read a book? I was just joking with him. He's like, I know, it's funny, I wrote a book. And then he gets into AI. And so I run a indoor golf simulator business here in Sandy, Utah called Back Nine. And I was have him help me with some of the marketing. And he showed me how to program a bot to respond. And I was floored. I'm like, what do you mean you program them? Right. And so we went and he just, walked me how to do it and then how to put all the answers to possible questions and everything. And then of course, everything, using the web and Chat GPT to get other answers. But I was floored on how easy it was for a guy who knew nothing to sit down and we named her Summer at the time and what kind of personality we wanted her to have, who our target audience or who our clients are, the answers to questions, the direction we want them to push people if they ask these questions. So that is, maybe more than most people have had with learning how to program a bot.
Yeah, what's interesting. So a lot of people have kind of dabbled with it a little bit. A lot of the platforms out there are somewhat marginal in their value that they provide, or like, for example, this is going to help me write an email really well. This is going to help me, let me just kind of take one iteration, and it's like let me shoot one prompt at the AI, and then it gives me something back, and that's pretty cool. But what's really interesting, what we've really had to figure out is how do we this is something that you can actually make money. Like, this is something that will actually grow your business, that'll actually make you money. Do you know what I mean? So like a lot of the AI, chat bots or whatever, they're going to replace kind of some of your entry level positions, like data entry people. Like, I can plug in a spreadsheet and say, hey, give me 10 reports, give me this specific report, change the colors, whatever. So those types of roles you're going to see kind of go away a little bit more as AI develops. But then when you talk about not just entry level, we're talking about like we're essentially mimicking a sales rep. We're being a sales rep, and sales is not an entry level position typically. I mean, you got different levels obviously, but what's crazy is we're actually overperforming. We're outperforming the average sales rep. And we talked before here. I can share some statistics. I'm a big numbers guy. I did finance.
We're going to get into that. Anyways. But one thing on AI that I'll just say for those people who are listening and are about to tune out because they're like, I don't know anything about it. My first experience, right, was I'm like, I have to learn this, right? I'm smart enough to know what I don't know in most cases. I'm like, I don't know anything about it. So I get it on my phone, and I can't remember if somebody taught me on a podcast, or basically I went upstairs, and every night in our house I take the boys to bed, and they're 14, 12, and 10 now. And we've been doing this for 12 years, like at least, right? And so this is my oldest could talk. And we talk about what's your favorite part of today. And we have some basic rules on it. And so I did it again last night, and they always say, Dad, you coming up? I'm like I have to be like injured to not go up and put them to bed. But anyway, I brought my phone. I go, hey guys, we're going to do something fun. And I said, Jackson, I need you to give me a spot for the story. Where's the story going to take place? What story, Dad? Doesn't matter. Tell me where you want it to take place. And he's like, outer space. Okay, great. And I say, Cooper, I need you to tell me characters. Like, you can name people. You can say the Avengers, you can name Donald Duck, Michael Jordan, like whoever. Give me 5 characters, right? And so he chose I don't remember what he chose the first time. And then Harrison, I'm like, what are these people going to do in outer space, right? And then he just gave me some random, he's probably 6 at the time, 7 at the time, random thing. And then I said, okay. And I said, Chat GPT, write me a funny bedtime story, right? And under 1,000 words, and it takes place on the moon with these characters, and they're doing this thing. And it wrote a bedtime story, and I would read it to him, and we would do this like once. It was awesome. And like just last week, the little one's like, Dad, can we do that Chat GPT thing again? Because we got really good at them, and they were really funny. But yeah, that was my first experience.
That's awesome. So you should do that again, and because they actually have had some updates. And I don't know exactly where it is in the production level, but I've been watching some of the demos that they've been doing. But you can actually do that same story, but then ask it to dictate it.
So I had to,
And-
I basically had, you can download it and I had Google read it, or I found a way to do that. So it
Well, yeah, no, ChatGPT has a way of doing it now. And I think that they've released their latest and greatest, but you can interrupt it and say, no, I want that more dramatic. No, I want that even more dramatic. And it'll do a bedtime story like you've never seen. It's really, really, really good. Like you would not be able to tell, like it's getting to the point where it's not quite there, but it's getting to the point where you won't be able to tell the difference between an AI and a human. Well, over text, it's already there. I mean,
Right.
99% of people that we communicate, it's all over text, right?
Right.
So they don't even know it's an AI. But over voice, it's getting really close.
Yeah, my last little story about AI, just because I think it's funny that I'm learning these things, but I spend a lot of time sitting at baseball, right? Like practices, my kids play on travel teams that aren't convenient, which means we have to drive. And so, yeah, I could go run an errand, grab some groceries, or I could just realize that I worked my ass off in my younger years to be able to be at these practices, right?
Yeah.
So watch. And so one day I had to write some emails. And I'm like, I don't want to bring I don't want to be that guy with my laptop. And so I threw up my hammock, had my phone, and I basically dictated into ChatGPT the email I needed to write. And then it wrote it. And I'm like, okay, now what do I do? Because I want to change it. So I said, hey, change the second paragraph to this. And it just changed the second paragraph. And I was like, oh my God. And I wrote like, it was a drip campaign. So it was a series of 8 emails. And I had them write all 8. And then I edited one at a time. And it just kept on adding and kept on reading. And then it remembered it was awesome. And then I killed an hour there in the park. And I'm like, that would have taken me multiple hours. And my wife would have had to come proofread it afterwards, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, totally.
All right, let's talk about Sellify, how exactly you're helping the pest control industry make more sales, right? Let's talk about your ideal customer. You told me is the largest pest control people on the planet, but you can help anybody of any size. And so let's say I'm a I don't know, $5 million pest control company with however many clients that is, and I have a small sales team out selling. What is your basic demo? What is your basic, tell me about it and how it would help my business?
Yeah. So, I mean, typically when, we're just to give like a high level overview of kind of what we do, right? It's outbound sales with AI over text. So, and we're working on more use cases like inbound and debt collection and stuff. But right now, like our bread and butter is outbound. So think about it like if I'm like you mentioned that pest control company. Well, you typically are offering more than one service. So if you've got like pest control, pest, termite, mosquito, right? So we can reach out to your existing customers and have a two-way conversation. It's very low pressure, but we bring up the sale, we make the sale. Sweet, you want to do mosquito? Okay, awesome. Let's sign you up. Here's a contract link. You sign the contract, update the payment method, get them on the schedule. That's all automated.
So pest, mosquito, and termite.
Yeah.
Let's say I have 2 of those, but not the third one. You can, do you have a name for the AI, or is it?
Well, you can name it whatever you want, but Anna Williams is typically the go-to name that we've been using.
Anna, okay. So let's say you want to tell Anna to just reach out a certain client base. Can you say, just scour my data and only message the people that don't have termite and offer them termite?
Totally, you can do that. It wouldn't work quite as you're thinking. Like the AI isn't going to be like a user that's going to go download a report in field routes and do all this stuff. That's our software. Our software will automate that.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily. I mean, our software is totally backed by AI.
So you have manual filters you can put in place.
Yep.
That would then you hit start or go or whatnot, and
yeah.
Okay.
And it's like a kind of like almost, you can think about it like a drip campaign, but a drip campaign with two-way ongoing conversations with an actual sales rep pretty much. So, I mean, you've got upselling, you've got win back. So like cancel customers or lost leads, right? You've also got like, we can set appointments if it's a more complex sale. Like if you're doing a one-time job, that's a big job or something, or like sometimes companies will have us do set appointments for termites or whatever, but or we can sell it outright. So it's very highly customizable, right? Like you train this AI persona to say, hey, I want you to talk like this, and I want you to overcome objections like this, and this is an ideal conversation flow. This is kind of how it works. Ready, go, sort of a thing, right?
So I had a particular lawn care service. I've changed my lawn care. Have I? I canceled one. I'm supposed to. I don't know if the guy ever called me back.
Like as a customer, you mean, or you're saying
as a customer?
owner?
As a
Okay.
customer, I had a lawn care service that there was just some certain things I didn't like about it. And one of the kind of the over the top factors for me was when I had to get a phone call for this particular company. I'd see it on my phone, and I was like, oh, I wonder if this is about my lawn care. And I'd answer, and they would want to sell me pest control. And I'd very politely tell them, I have pest control. I'm not planning on changing. I like them. Please remove me from your pest control. And they would call me every 2 months. And I got to a point, I'm like, when I got called by another lawn care provider, I was like, yes, you can have my business. I just need to make sure. I just need to make sure. I mean, I'm like, and he was like, well, I got to call. I go, no, I'm gonna lay down. Before I say yes, I got to make sure that I'm not in service 6 out of 8 and I got 2 and then I'm paying you. So I verified that I had no more services, and I just can't remember if I've he ever followed up or called back. But my point is, for a company that offers product A that now wants to offer pest control specific, because it sounds like that's what Anna is built for. I'm assuming they could use to say, hey, these are all of our clients. We offer lawn care. We now want to offer pest control. Do you have a use case like that yet? Because I'm sure somebody's listening.
Oh yeah,
has a need for that.
Yeah. So we get all the time, like they want to offer a new service that we can cross sell or upsell. We even have pest control companies doing HVAC too that they want to cross sell on. That's totally an option. But I want to make a point to what you're saying. Like a lot of times when you're doing these outbound campaigns just through traditional methods, it can be somewhat abrasive if you don't do it the right way, right? And if you don't have the context of your last conversation, right? Because they're just calling you and they're like zero context from your last conversation. Well, the power of what we're doing is we can have that in context, right? Hey, last time I reached out to you, I know that you mentioned this or whatever. Just wanted to let you know this is going on or whatever.
The AI does that.
Oh yeah. Well, that's part of our software that we've kind of built in, and that's not an easy thing to do, but it makes the conversation and the experience for the customer way better. Having that knowledge, but also it's less abrasive because you're not doing like a blast text message where it's just like, hey, call in for 50% off. Let's give you a deal. That's pretty abrasive. If you kept getting texts from a company, you're just like, I don't want to read that. But if you have somebody reaching out, like you obviously can customize the approach, but hey, I just wanted to check up to see how your last service went. Everything going well? Okay, cool. Hey, I'm optimizing the routes for this. I noticed that you've got just the pest control. Have you considered this other option? I'm trying to, fill in a few spots. It's just less abrasive, right? Like you can customize that approach, but the experience is just way better. Sorry, you asked something else, I think, but I totally went down a rabbit hole. But
it made me think about, again, dating myself here, right? With junk mail, right? Like I know junk mail still works, right? They still mail it. And for me, it's like, I always applaud the people that can get me to open it, right? Like I get them like,
oh yeah.
My dad lives with us, and the 84-year-old has to get the mail every day. Like I'm like once a week kind of mail guy, right? Like I'm like the knock on the door from the postman. Hey, your box is full. Right? That's me, right? But he goes every day, and every day so there's new mail on our counter, and most of it I don't even open. Most of it you can just tell. But when I open something that ends up being junk, I'm like, that's good, right? Yeah. I still feel that I can tell when I'm being texted by a bot. And again, my generation, I'm like, I don't like that. Like if I'm on a website and the help button, I know it's not live. I know I like when it's live. Like when I get on with Delta. Now, Delta is totally automated, by the way, and they have me fooled, right?
They're using it.
Yeah. But you have to wait. And then when you wait, you get to talk to somebody and it feels live. But just the fact, like when you text somebody back and they immediately give you like a paragraph response, I'm like, come on now. There's no way they're going to type that fast, right? And so that turns me off as a buyer, right? My generation, my age turns me off as a buyer. And I would say that I am, compared to my friends, I'm way more down the techie road. Like some of my friends probably don't even know, I'm going to date myself, but I have some people that are grandparents that are my age, right? Because they got kids early. Their kids had kids early, right? And so, I'm in my 50s and it's just like, it's just a turnoff, right? And so maybe not the target market, but what is your experience on AI with different demographics?
Well, okay, so
my dad at 80 could be fooled easily, right? He's like, oh, somebody's texting me, I'm going to engage, right? But I'm at the age where I know something's off.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and you mentioned a couple things when you're like, I noticed like if they respond immediately, that's also kind of red flag. Also, if they respond with this giant big text, right? And you can just tell that like the way that it's, we have been able to just train the AI model or whatever to respond actually more human-like than you might think. So like we have artificial delays built in. So like if it's going to be a long text that we're sending, there's a delay, right? As if somebody were, writing out the message, right? And then the nice thing about this is it's a conversational thing. So we can't send all of the information in one text. It's, hey, this is kind of what's going on. And then you have a question or something. And then it's kind of just a two-way conversation, right? That's how normal dialogue happens, right? Like, hey, just had a few questions for you. Is this a good phone number for you still? Or something like to engage. And you mentioned too, like, I only open, like you don't open those, whatever. So I would venture to bet that you probably open most, if not all of your text. Like,
Sure.
Like 90% of people will open the text messages, right? And then we have like a lot of times over 50% of people will respond. So like we have a huge response rate. It depends on who you're reaching out to. If you're reaching out to like cancel customers or more like cold data, that's a little bit different. So I would say I think it's less about the demographic, and I think it's more about the type of data and how warm that data is. So if it's a current customer, we need to do like a test, because I really doubt you could tell that it would be AI.
I'm flashing back to the training platform I built with my team at Vivint. And I will talk about some recruiting software I know as well, but I guess at the time, this was 3-4 years ago, we created, I guess her name was Emma, right? Was our responder. And probably people watching this are going to learn right now that Emma was actually a bot and not a real person named Emma. But when we first launched Emma, to answer some basic questions about training and onboarding, I went and I just went and watched the dialogue. It's just funny to watch guys like, and I'm not going to say names, but people will be like, oh, hey, Emma, how are you? And then have this conversation. Hey, are you single, right? They're just, and then
we get that all the
they
time.
They take a photo of themselves. They're like, this is me. Send me one of you. And I'm like,
gosh.
Oh my God, if the people knew that I actually knew they did that. And so I was like, wow, this is real. And it worked. And I remember a few conversations. I was hosting a podcast and they got the idea that Emma was not a real person. Like, wait, she's not real?
Yeah, totally. So to your point, that we get that all the time. People like trying to ask Anna out on a date all the time. So we went to, what is it called? Pest World, if you're familiar. And before that, we got a list of all the attendees. So we did a little campaign of like, hey, this is Anna. Come stop by our booth. Like, I'd love to meet you or whatever. And you'd be surprised how many people were like, hey, I talked to Anna. I don't know where she is, but I think like we had a female representative there, right? And like, yeah, I already talked to one of your reps here. And they're like, we're sitting there like, yeah, we need to talk. Like you've already been sold. Like,
yeah.
Anyways.
All right. So the revenue boost, right? Everything business. It's good to know that it's not a subscription model, because I think right now in our industry, and the door-to-door industry in general, everything comes with this reoccurring, piece. I got my knocking app, and then I got my all the different things. My knocking app, then my sales proposal tool. I got Pest routes. I got like all these things that are adding $20, $30, $40 a month, and they're all by different companies, and so they're stacking. And you have a rep, and say you're paying $250 a month just for their software fees. So it's good to know that you all do it on a commission basis.
Right.
Do you have a particular size client that you're gonna, you have to have this many clients or customers before you even because it's not worth our time?
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, I'll get to that in a second. So like to go to your point, like with our business model, we kind of say only pay for what you sell, which is really beneficial, because if you're only selling in the summer months, for example, or the spring or something, you're not paying for us in the winter. And it aligns the incentives, because if we're essentially a sales organization, right? We get a commission on the sales we make. Well, we're directly motivated to fine tune things and to make sure that we're dialing in our approach, so we have like account executives that we'll have dedicated account executives, instead of, like some companies will make you pay for a dedicated account executive, right? We just provide it because there's enough value there. We're just like, hey, we're directly motivated to make sales for you anyway. So whereas there's kind of a conflict of interest almost when you're paying for like a per seat per month, like, because essentially that company would make a lot of money if you got a lot of seats, but they don't really care if you use them, or if there's really providing actual value to the company. So anyways, but then your other question, sorry, I forgot what I'm blanking on what you were asking me before.
Revenue, I want to know if I'm a pest control company. So far, it sounds like it cost me nothing to jump in. Is there an activation fee, or just like, hey, I got 4,000 customers in my database, and only 15% of them have termites, so.
Yeah, I mean, we can work with, like, hypothetically speaking, I mean, we can work with any pest control company and or, solar and or, trade, right? Obviously due to the nature of how we charge or how we make money is like the bigger the company, the more of an incentive we have. More transactions, to have that. Right? Yeah. So like, I mean, we're working with several of the Rollins brands, and it's going really well there. So, the bigger the company, obviously, the better. But let me just run some numbers here. So, like when you're talking about like revenue, like what actually, first of all, how do you set it up? Usually, there's just an onboarding phase where we, integrate everything and get the AI persona built. And do
you build new personas for each company?
Yes, yeah. So it's there's a series of questions like, hey, how do you want us to approach certain things? What are we selling? How are we wanting to sell it? So there's a little bit of a discovery phase there.
And is it pulling off of the other companies' information and knowledge as well? Like, is it the whole ChatGPT world?
We keep proprietary things individual to individual companies,
right?
But anything that's kind of general that we've been able to learn as we've, done things, right? Like, then we'll keep that at
the onboarding form. If you answer these 17 questions, then we have enough information to then customize it.
Yeah, exactly. So let me just like give you an example. Like, let's take a company that's doing 50 million in revenue. They probably have around 80,000 customers, right? So if we're going to do an upselling mosquito campaign, for example, right? If you were to do it internally, from what we've seen, if you had like an internal team that was just doing outbound sales, so you have people just calling up, upselling a mosquito, right? You would have, out of 100 customers, you're going to sell anywhere from 1 to 4, depending on how good you are at running the program. Because you're going to have a certain connection rate. You're not going to get on the phone with everyone, right? And then you're going to sell maybe 15 to 20, 25% of the people you get on the phone with or whatever. You're going to only get maybe 10 to 20% of the people on the phone. Sorry, I'm getting in the weeds on the numbers. I'm a big numbers guy.
Yeah, well, I think anybody who's interested in reaching out right now is when they're listening. So
yeah, totally. So so you're going to sell anywhere from around 2 to 3% on average. Well, our lowest results that we've seen thus far, knock on wood, is around the 3% range. We've seen as high as 13% with an average of 6. So if you compare an average of 2 or 3 to an average of 6, we're closing 2 to 3 times more on average than an average sales rep or an average outbound sales team. So if you take the 83,000 customers and you say, all right, ideal scenario, we sell 6%, that's 5,000 sales, right? So
let's talk about that, because when you're calling, right, the humans, even if you're using a dialer, you cannot call fast enough to cripple the business, right? If you go out and sell 5,000 accounts tomorrow and you can't service those accounts. So 80,000, you can probably sell 80,000 text messages in a couple of days, depending on, your service provider or whatnot, but without breaking anything to make sure they go through. That's a lot of conversations happening simultaneously,
Yep.
a lot of sales being transacted immediately, and then the company can't service it. So how do you solve for that?
Yeah, great question. And it's a great problem to have, honestly, right? So we have a way of throttling it, right? So like you can say like, hey, I only want to reach out to a maximum X number of people per day, because that's the maximum that I can handle in this location or whatever, right?
So you reverse engineer it. So this branch could handle 10 new incoming sales a day.
Yep.
And you reverse the math and go, okay, that means we're going to send 2,000 messages a day.
Right.
And then so then when you get to the end, then it's a new campaign, or
well, then it's kind of ongoing, right? So you set certain parameters where it's like, hey, I want to reach out to somebody. If I don't close them in this conversation, we're going to set it to kind of but re-engage here in a year from now. Or some companies are a little bit more aggressive. They want to do it every 6 months, right? It's kind of the norm that we've seen is 6 months to a year. You kind of reach out. Depends on the use case, depends on what you're selling. But yeah, like the idea is you kind of set it up, right? And then you don't really have to like babysit it. You just monitor it. You watch the sales come in, make sure that everything's dialed in, make adjustments as necessary.
So I love to ideate on things like this, and I have two thoughts when I'm going to ask you this question. One is it'd be really cool if you haven't thought of this. It'd also be really scary if you have or haven't thought of it, right? Like I'm like, okay, well, I understand door to door. You get somebody to say yes to a bot, to Anna. Well, then does Anna know then to say, okay, well, these other 7 people or 17 or 70 people live in the same neighborhood? Because if obviously, as you sell Nancy, you're going to go to Mary's house next door and you're going to Nancy. Does Anna go, hey, somebody from your neighborhood just called in to get termites, and so we figured we'll reach out. Like, are you being
That's
able
an interesting concept. Yeah, I think it would be like from a door-to-door standpoint.
Well,
like
if I
definitely use like
if I got a text message that
right?
said, hey, JP, Mark, your neighbor Mark just reached out to us to come spray for termites. Since we're in the neighborhood, like, because pest control, right? You knock pest control, your customers are probably a lot of them on the same street.
Yeah.
Did I just come up with a?
Yeah, I love that.
Because I would respond to that.
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh yeah, like
yeah. We're constantly trying to find ways to hyper personalize the approach, because the more you can personalize the approach, the better chances you have of closing the deal. So that's a really interesting. We've thought about that too. We've done some piloting of digital door knock. We call them digital door knocking campaigns, where it's a similar concept, but we don't have the hey, this person's doing it. So that's interesting. I'll look into that a little bit more and see if there's something, because really all it is just having the data. Obviously we can do that.
It's mapping stuff. If you have 80,000 customers, you can put those into some mapping software, and then now you have addresses and streets, and you can do proximity.
Yeah, totally. And what we have been doing to kind of use that approach typically is we say, hey, we're servicing homes on this specific street, which helps. But if you had a specific name of somebody on the street, totally. So I need to look into see how we could get that data. We could totally pull that data. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, my cogs are turning.
Yeah. Send all residual payment information
from Field Route. I mean, that's all in the CRM.
Yeah.
You could pull that all in. You know what?
All residual pay information should go to the Arley Boys. What is it called? 501 account? No, their college education fund. Just send payments.
Yes, that's great. No, that's a really good idea. I need to.
There was another one too that I just thought of that.
Write that down.
Referral base, like referral base marketing, meaning you sell to a customer, it gets logged in, right? You would, especially if it's a call-in customer, not a door knocking client, but if a customer buys, same concept of
like an inbound sale, you're saying,
hey, we just finished your, like, so my pest control provider is Aptive, right? And I've had them for years. When Homeboy is coming to spray, I get a text from the driver, right? Yeah. It might be automated from the driver, but the way it's written, like, bravo to you to write in a 3rd grade reading level that right? Like, they can tell he's driving and bouncing up. But hey, I'm pulling up. I look out there, he's up, and then I just finished. Then he takes pictures and sends. So obviously there's some manual effort being involved in here. But if at the same time, he never asks for referrals.
Yeah, like a referral campaign is what you're kind of getting
but
at.
again, first of all, it'd be great if you can just, push a button that you're on, like Uber, push a button, you're on the way, and the automatic text messages, hey, I'm coming. Hopefully it's real. They're doing that. But I've done some stuff recruiting wise where the recruits come into this funnel, like in the old days, like I would have in my office at any given time, 6 to 15 receptionists answering live phone calls from people applying for jobs and or making then outgoing phone calls to people who applied online. And it was laborious and expensive to say the least. And then what happened is I ran an organization of like 10 to 12 offices. And there was an expense. Some offices needed two receptionists, some needed 4, some needed part-time. So I just said, based on the number of people that apply, this is what I'm going to charge you. And I brought everybody in house and I paid the bill and then charged them their prorated share of how many, anyway.
Yeah.
So then it went from that to a call center on the East Coast, 50 to 80 individuals, but all the applications nationwide came into a top of the funnel. And then through text messaging, right? Hey, do you know this is a door-to-door job? Yes, right? And then next question. And the filter, and then eventually the phone would ring and one of the 50 people would open it. So tens of thousands of resumes would come in, and then there would still be a live person scheduling the interview. That's probably obviously going to change to completely automated, but just the texting, communication back and forth, casual. This is where Emma came from, right? And so it was already built to do that. And very engaging, and it works. I can see myself being fooled by a very short text engaging platform that gets me from point A to point B, right? So anyhow.
Yeah. Well, and to your point, so with the referrals and everything, that's also an interesting concept. We've tried to look into that a little bit from a technical perspective. There's a few nuances, but definitely a need there for sure. Definitely a need. And I'll make a quick mention too. This just came to my mind, as we were waiting to meet. You think about like door-to-door experts, and how ideally you could have a lot of people come to you have a lot of platforms that you offer or whatever, but we could essentially set appointments for you. I hear a lot of you guys do a lot of cold calling, and there's I talked with Sam a little bit about it, so we need to further those conversations.
We are definitely experimenting we've experimented with AI, we've experimented with overseas, we experiment with SDRs physically here. There's a lot of challenges in our business that could be fixed through AI. It's just a matter of proof of concept. People aren't there yet.
Anyways, yeah.
So we could go. I told you if I get into this, we could go on. Because I'm gonna ask just for my own education. Rule number 1 I learned in selling and building rapport is try to learn something from everybody, because then you can pass that information on to the next conversation. Next conversation.
Sure.
So to get a hold of you, obviously you're going to be your vendor at Door-to-Door Con. So we appreciate you supporting us. And so they can come up to your booth here in January 7th, 8th, and 9th, which I'm not sure if this will be out by then. We're running right up to when our drop dates are. So let's say this hypothetically it airs after Door-to-Door Con. Let's give everybody your information now, or the best way to get a hold of somebody from Sellify, so they can have a demo, they can have a walkthrough, they can learn more about you.
Yeah, totally. So actually, if you go to our website, sellifyai.com, you can actually
sell SELL or SEL?
Yeah, SELLIFY AI.com. Then you can actually book an appointment directly from there, and I'll be notified of that. And or you can connect with me on LinkedIn or something.
Thomas Lundberg.
Thomas Lundberg, yep.
Okay, awesome.
Email me, thomas@sellifyai.com.
Thomas@sellifyai.com. This might squeak out before Door-to-Door Con, but if it doesn't, reach out to them. Sounds like a cool product. And my brain is always then going, oh, how do I do? Yeah. So we'll maybe have a conversation when we turn the camera off. But thanks for joining us this week, and we'll see you next week. Hopefully we see you at Door-to-Door Con January 7th, 8th, and 9th here in Salt Lake City. If you don't have a ticket, you might want to get one. We're expecting a little over 3,000 people there. It's going to be a fantastic event. Take care, everybody. See you next week.